So, welcome everybody to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series. Today is episode 12, and we're looking at how much are we in control of our life and world. For many of us, we feel a sense that we can navigate not only our own personal experience, but maybe a little more challenging to observe and say how much are we in control of the world. But there's many other people that feel that we are really not in control. Either something else is driving us and guiding us and so forth, or the fact that in some way, somehow, that no matter what you do and whatever else, you're kind of subject to whatever's playing out. So really stay tuned to today's episode as we explore and open that up in a big way. So, welcome back. So let's play with this. How much are we in control of our life and world? When we look at it on the surface, we feel that, in fact, that we may have very little control of our life, besides the fact of some choices we may make. But a lot of times we even feel the choices are challenging for us because at some point we feel that we would like to make a choice, but the circumstances not be laid out, or previous choices would impede on the current choices and so forth. But also at the same time, we feel that in many cases that our circumstances of how we came through life, the choices we made as a child, but many people don't even put that as a choice because in essence they say, okay, so I'm here, right? And I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose any part of my experience. And here I am. I am heavily governed by what's happening in my family dynamics, the roles that my parents are playing, and if you have parents in other places, other role players in your life, or the fact that, wherever you've experienced. Of course, then we're going through life, and of course we're being trained, conditioned, and we adopt beliefs, ideas, perceptions, and so forth. And then we continue on into exposed to other friends, other people, other engagements with whatever we're getting involved in, including going into the educational system, going into, taking a lot of tips and so forth from the media. And this can be from anything from magazines to news to movies, to music, to other forms of information that is being sent out there on a big way. And we start to adopt and utilize and kind of shape an idea that life is this way. And in many cases, a lot of the information is that life, we have choices, but they're limited to the choices we can make. And the fact that we have to all fit into a certain compartment or a certain way of life and so forth. So some of it may be, okay, the family dynamic extension and whatever we have absorbed through our education and so forth, but then it also comes into the traditions that may apply. You can go into, not only traditions, but the stereotyping of the culture that you're coming through the physical orientation as being male, female, or something else at this point. All of that play a particular role. But, when we look at it and say, well, these things shaped me, these things decided my life, or the fact that, because I came through this channels and all the influences that I had shaped my life, and how much can I really change? And then we extend it even further to look at the world and how could I actually change the world? It's just me and I'm just trying to survive and make through life whatever it is. Then I could probably make certain choices to make my life what I call and believe is better based on the fact of what, the collective believes or other clusters may believe or other connections that we may have had or whatever we adopted as ideas may believe. That, I can make my life better, but how can I change the world? How can I be influential in that way? Well, many of us have gone through that, and others have actually looked at it and say, well, what I do, who I engage with, what I share, whatever it is, does make an impact. Maybe not the whole world, but it does make an impact. But you can also see certain individuals that have come through our channels of live streaming I'm not saying personally directly, but on the collective forefront, where certain individuals have been quite impactful on how the world actually changes. But then it still comes back to us and individually and say, well, okay, yeah, but those were exceptional. These were not me. Who am I? And so forth. So let's really examine that a little further. First of all, yes, you understand. I mean, if you're listening to any of my stuff over the years, you understand that, yeah, we have full choice and others have, reflected the same. The choice of, yeah, what parents we chose, what life stream, what part of the planet we came, what gender we took on, what we chose to adopt and utilize through any exposure we had, from the lineage, from the family dynamics, even stuff that we carried in through any what we call past lives from a human entity perspective and also from a soul perspective, because there are two different streams. But at the same time, you say, okay, well, I made those choices. I made the choices along the way. And of course, we understand all choices are perfect and all choices are going to support us along the way. And of course, we adopted ideas from what the collective was offering, what the different groups and so forth that were interconnected with our lives through the educational system, media, and whatever else. And here we are. Well, when we are in a deeper sleep state, then we may feel that in somehow we really do not have any power. But as we are now being stimulated, reminded, activated, and there's so much changing within ourselves, we're starting to realize more and more that we are really not only creators, we are our own creation and the director and observer of our creations, but we are fully in control of what our life extends and follows through. Now, some things you have made, all of us have made agreements to stay fast. Well, maybe, you're not going to venture out in certain areas where it's not necessary. But you are now looking at your life and you're looking at your life, what resonates first and foremost, what makes more sense for you in the sense of this is what I choose to experience now. So you definitely are in control of not only your choices, but the best part is even how it unfolds. I know this might be stretching it and pushing it a little bit, but it's true. And that is something that you will confirm within yourself, not that it will be something outside of you that's saying one way or another. So yes, you have a choice on who comes in and plays in your life, how they actually play in your life. You have the freedom to instruct them in what roles they will take, how long they stay, don't stay. We have the freedom to not only choose what we want to focus on, but also in that focusing, how we want to experiencing what we're focusing. So that also comes into play. So in fact, we are quite in control of our life. Now, if we feel that we made a certain path and that has been held for quite some time from childhood to now, or different stages where you've created certain patterns, defaults, or created a way of life for yourself, and you may see yourself or feel in one way or another that it may be more challenging to let that go, well, that's an observation, and that would be a program that would say that the human I shouldn't say the human entity, the ego and the artificial intelligence may reinforce or utilize it one way or another. However, even with all of that into consideration, whatever the scenario may be and whatever is there, you still can change any part of it. And you can change any part of it any time. Yes, there may be a slight delay as you're making the changes, and the delay is only the delay that we kind of set up in our own experience so that we don't get shocked, or that the fact we get the opportunity to experience the transition more smoothly, but also to complete anything that we may have not completed and get a deeper understanding of what's going on prior to just jumping in and changing things. Now we're going to start saying, okay, I'm going to shift my focus. I'm going to start looking at my life and see how much of it still resonates or resonates at all, and what does not resonate. And then you can ask yourself the question, what would resonate based on where I'm at now and based on what I feel within myself as I want to start to experience. So you start to make changes in your focus, your direction, who and what you play with, and so forth. Now, it doesn't matter how much history you have, how much conditioning and programming and so forth. Right now, you have still the freedom very powerfully, and this is going to continue to accentuate, to disempower all of that, disconnect from all of that. First, of course, we have to acknowledge what's there. Of course, we're going to appreciate what's there because it all served, and we're going to send it a lot of love, but we can drop it, let it go. Now, of course, the ego is going to throw some tidbits every so often. No, that's not easy. You can't let it go. This, you worked for this, or the fact that, they did this or did that, and this is why, things are this way or that way. Well, as much as that is the case, you have the freedom to choose if you're going to give power to it or not. Because in fact, all of it is easily transmuted. All of it is easily cleared out once we accept and acknowledge that. Even patterns and addictions and so forth, when we really look at it and say, okay, does this serve me? You don't want to look at it, say, an addiction and demonize it, or see yourself or demonize yourself for being caught in it, or bash yourself, or judge yourself, or compare yourself, or anything of that nature. Just see the addiction for what it is. It's an addiction. Okay, great. I utilized it. I used it in one way or another to provide me a certain sequence of experiences, and here I am, more enriched by it. But, I'm also sensing right now, feeling in a big way that it doesn't support me any longer. And if there's anything tied to what that represents, that addiction, meaning, is it escapism, or is it a way to cope with life, or is it a way to punish yourself for whatever perceived idea that you may have failed or made poor choices or anything of that nature? You want to look at those things. You want to address each one of them, acknowledge them, and you let them go, because it makes it easier to step out of the addiction when those are not heavily implanted or tied in to kind of create a restriction for you. And this is the beauty of when we start looking at the reasoning why we've taken on certain parts. And if it's still hard and fast and still active within you, then you really want to take the steps to let that part go after you have acknowledged it, appreciated it, loved it, and let it go. So as we're going through all of this, we're noticing more and more, becoming more and more aware as consciousness continues to expand, that we are in control. In fact, not only in control, we are that creator. We're the ultimate creator of ourselves. And, we're part of our creation, observation, and environments and realities and so forth. But with the energies coming in, the consciousness is streaming through, the spectrums of light are really creating changes on so many levels. So even as much as we bought into the depth of the idea that we were powerless, that everything dictated how your life was going to be, your past choices, your past interactions, who was in your life or not in your life, who played what, was the dictation or dictator of your life and your current journey. Well, we're coming more and more to that realization that is not true in any way, shape, or form. Now, we've adopted the perceptual truth for a period of time, but it's not really the truth, and we are realizing that. So with everything that's changing for us, we're able to see it for what it is and take the steps to unravel it and let that part of it go. Because in fact, we are really, in our truest sense, we are only living this current moment. This current moment is completely flexible. This current moment is not governed by our past or anything else at this point. Even perceived ideas and labels and definitions. it's only when we refer back to that, then we are shaping that moment right now. Now, being that this moment is flexible, if you are fully present in this moment and observe it and see what's playing out and look at it for what resonates and doesn't resonate without any judgment, without any contamination or condemning it in any way, shape, or form, you will be able to see, okay, now let me look at my preferences and let's look at some of the things that resonate and doesn't resonate for me. And then you can go through the steps and dropping certain parts of it. Again, please do it step by step rather than a full out drop everything, which, just at times can be done. But in many cases, it becomes a little bit more challenging. And then the ego can use it and say, hey, you failed, you can't do it, you're stuck. But that's kind of a perceived trap that we create because of the fact that we're saying, okay, it has to today's a new day. Well, yeah, today's a new day. This moment's a new moment. The next moment's going to be a new moment. The next moment after that will be a new moment. The thing is, this moment, what do I choose to not only experience, what do I choose to observe that may be governing how I experience things? Let me see what resonates, what doesn't resonate, and start writing all of that down and then taking the steps to look at all the ties to it and connections to it and then say, okay, these no longer serve me. This no longer supports me. This no longer resonates for me. And you let those go. And then you look at, what do I prefer? How do I want my life to look like? Now, of course, we want to be outside of what the collective projects as the idea of life because you want to be you. You don't want to mimic or copy anybody else. You don't want to, copy what the collective or utilizing what the collective says. You came here to be an individual expression of your own beingness and your own essence of consciousness and your own essence of what you have to offer. So in that case, you're not going to use in the reference whatever the collective is spewing or the media or anything else that's spewing or whatever you've been taught through your family. You're not going to use that. You're going to say, okay, as my truest expression, how do I want to shape my life now? And again, you're going to take step by step. So each moment you make adjustments. Each moment you create further observation and you're still checking along the way. So each moment there's a slight shift and each moment will build up on the next moment of that shift because what happens, each step you take, baby or not, that these steps will actually will affect and conducify, which is a new word, conducify the following steps or the following moments. So in understanding all of that, you are now becoming more aware than ever before that you are ultimately the controller of your life, the designer of your life, and you have full sovereignty. You have full free will how you use it, regardless of how much programming, exposure, and so forth, because that cannot stay in place unless we make it real and continue to support it. Now, patterns need to be also observed too, because a lot of times we have these defaults that we've established within ourselves that may not resonate or is not conducive for you in any way, shape, or form any longer. Then of course you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go through these processes and acknowledge what's there that serves and doesn't serve, and the rest of it you kind of bit by bit drop it. So when it comes to the world, how much are we in control of our world? Well, we're in control of our own personal life. We are in control of our immediate reality. That means whatever is around you as your first level of reality, your home, whatever you engage with, where you reside. That's the next level. The level of that extends further because now we have other aspects of your world that exist. One being one that you may involve your family dynamics, your maybe your immediate family, if you have a partner with children or a non-partner, just children, or just involvement with your extended family. But then it does go to the next level of how you shape your extended family. And when I say shape, because we are fully in charge of how we shape it, how they play the role. Now, they may have their default patterns about themselves, but how they communicate with you, how you engage with, you are fully in charge. And as you shift that, they shift the role they play with you, and things open up in a very powerful way. And then, of course, we have other parts of our world, which would be our work environment, our friendship, partnerships of any at this point in time, your community, any other organizations that you may be involved. But then it continues to expand on bigger scale of your extended community, being whatever country you're in and further on. And of course, that also interacts with your culture or anything of that nature. And then the whole world itself, which continues to extend into the solar system, the galaxy, and the universe. But we'll stop at the world at this point. So as you can see, each one of them will shift accordingly as you shift, and then the choices you make with a higher preference and no longer, not only a higher preference, but also a resonance point, then your environments change. Now, some of the environment changes will mean that you may not integrate with them or play with them any longer, or put attention in that area any longer. And that may be the case, but other cases you may still want to play there, but then you're going to shift how you experience it for yourself, but also it affects how they, in fact, we are very powerful in instructing people how to play the roles. Now you say, well, how can I change certain people? You're not there to change certain people. What you are there to do is be you, and as you are you, and you're more, regardless of the environment or interaction, as you hold more of you, a higher aspect of you is already instructing the playmates to play differently with you, because what was being played before, or what their default response may be, is not serving you any longer. So then they will play a different role with you. And in some cases, and in sometimes much more cases, they may choose not to play with you anymore in the same fashion or at all for a period of time, or permanent. That happens. However, so the thing is, the world is a reflection of our collective. Now, each one of us are integral and connected very powerfully to the collective or the world itself. And this connection is not only with Gaia, it's connecting with all sentient beings, but it's also connected to every playmate on the planet, other aspects of you. So as you are going through the stages of shifting and sharing and whatever else, it is impacting the world. So that brings you back to, yes, you are in control of the world. Now, because other aspects of yourself may also want to continue certain roles, you will experience a mixture of those changes take place as you are shifting yourself. It's like, take example, this episode, and any episode I've done. I'm sharing information. That's an extension to the world. I'm sharing information. I'm not saying that's what you need to do, but I'm also doing it from my own experience, from my own choices, and my own involvement on how I live life and how I choose to see the world. So even though I'm sharing information, all I'm doing is triggering your memory, which you will do, especially with your experiences, not only trigger the memory, but also upload, unconsciously of course, upload new ways of dealing and experiencing the world. So as you're advancing, you're creating more and more streams of advancements for the collective to utilize to the degree it serves them. But the more that happens, the more it stimulates them to make that choice to go down that path or a newer path. Now, of course, there's going to be many, many streamers. So many versions that will blend and create more of an ultimate, because each one of us is a piece of the puzzle and holds a certain specific frequency and so forth. And that impacts the world in a huge way. So how we feel, how we choose the world, or choose to see the world, how we choose to see our own life is super impactful, and it does play a huge role to shift the planetary experience. Now, if you look at all the things that are playing out right now, yes, accentuated insanity, accentuated polarity, accentuated confusion, accentuated uncertainty, accentuated fear, and challenging of this idea of non-survival, or, whatever. This is, again, a combination that is available. We can choose how much of it we want to engage with or see with, because the more you're yourself, the less that not only doesn't impact you, but at the same time, that layer of the world doesn't exist for you, for example. So if you see chaos, it's not going to be in your environment. You can see it from a distance, but you're going to see it for what it is: a game, a play for the ones that want to integrate and play in that a little longer. So as you are observing that part of the world, you see the world as the unfoldment that is necessary for everybody to have the experiences they choose. Not everyone on the playground here is another version of you, because we're not only all source, but we're all players. Now, we get to see the versions of each and every individual that you engage with, and even on the bigger screen when you're looking at the world, the version that you will see is the version that you are choosing to see based on your higher consciousness. For example, let's take the North American election that played out, and right now there's a lot going on around that, because there's quite a bit of uncertainty, quite a bit of what people say manipulation, dishonesty, and so forth, and corruption. But let's take a look at that. You can choose to see the playmates as one way or another. Now, you can see some of the playmates are demonizing the other playmate, or demonizing the person in position. And others may be glorifying the other. Now, if you're glorifying, you're going to see only what you want to see. So you're going to see the version of them that you support your own glorification of them. If you're going to look at the other individual and you have a belief system or program around the fact of they're awful, and you demonize them, then you're going to see everything that will accentuate that, it being there or not, it's made up. So in fact, the focus on how you choose to see the world, you will see it accordingly. Now, I've done my own observation over the many, many years, but even looking at this electoral political part that's happening in North America, when you are in your highest state, you are not imposing a viewpoint. You're not imposing a narrative of sorts, because there's a lot of media that sways you one way or another, or at least convince you one way or another. But you're always in control of what you choose to observe or not. So, as my own personal example, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, because there's many, many people start to see that. You do not impose whatever the media says. You're not imposing whatever others are saying. And you're not going to impose on the view of seeing things based on the reactions of others. You're not going to see the individuals and the team behind them, whatever that may be, completely neutral as the observer. When you are completely neutral as the observer, now you can see the details. You're not filtering or limiting. So you can actually see really what's there, rather than a version that was projected to be there. And you can see both individual, both team efforts, and so forth for exactly what's there, what is being presented, what is the role that they're taking, and what role will play it accordingly. Then you can see what resonates more for you and what would be a preference of seeing that. That dissolves the polarization that we apply. Polarization of whatever we've been conditioned and believed to projected to believe. So then you can see things more clearly. And this applies to across the board in anything in your life. Because if you are going in already with a perceived idea, a concept of some sort of what to expect or see, and this happens on so many levels in our life. If we're expecting to have something bad happen, guess what? You're going to see and stage it so that you may have that experience or at least see it that way rather than see the bigger picture with the more potentiality. Because the moment we label, then of course we drastically reduce the potentiality. So if you see it from an observer point in neutrality, you can see the games of any stages of your life. So it doesn't matter if you see, say, your family and dramatically and all that plays out normally and see them as playmates playing out whatever they need to play, and you're still holding to the space of yourself being yourself, you're going to see a different version of them. You're going to see that they're working through their stuff or whatever they may, people like to call it. They're going through the whatever process they chose to play with, but it does not affect you and it doesn't require you to engage. Now, if the invitation is there at some point, you may want to share from a very neutral standpoint your observation. And I say that very clearly, your observation. That way you're not challenged. And that's, creates the opening and not taking away anybody's freedom. Because if you're telling somebody, then they may feel it in some way that you're taking away their right or something of that nature. But when you're looking at, hey, this is what I've observed, these are some of the choices I made, these are some of the outcomes I've observed and experienced myself. And when I started looking at all of this, I can see propaganda. I can see, something that I adopted or anything of that nature in my life originally. But now I'm seeing it much more clearly. That way you're kind of paving the way for them to still be empowered and also kind of shift their viewpoint. So, with saying all of this, with all of this that's playing out in the planet, with all these levels of polarization and all the beautiful energetic streaming that can create a lot of opportunities for us to kind of see our own programming and clear it out, we're also staging for us to be even more effective and in controlling and designing not only our own personal realities and all the different layers of realities, but ourselves as the world. So basically, we're impacting the world in a much more powerful way. There's much more involvement because there's an alignment that's going on with you. So when we go back to the question, how much are we in control of our life and our world? Hugely, based on everything that I've shared, but you may hear otherwise. Your ego might say otherwise. But the thing is, if you truly want to change your life, shift it so that it is in resonance. Shift it so that you are living your fullest potential. You're shifting it because you're being you, then you have full control over that. And if you'd like to see the world in a different way, and when I say like, that's see if you see and feel a resonance of the world a certain way, start to see it that way and allow whatever playmates that need to play out, whatever they're playing out, to finish playing it out without any judgment and any and labeling or anything of that nature. Just allow them to be while you hold within yourself that world that is emitting from you. Because as you do that, you already are streaming those ways of life as you, the contributor, in a big, powerful way to reshape the world. Now, of course, we have many aspects of ourselves around the world that are doing exactly the same. We also have some assistance that we're getting from our brother sister souls that may not be embodied in human form, may be embodied in different forms in beingness, that are using certain intervention to a certain degree without taking away our sovereignty or free will in any way, shape, or form, or disempowering us in any way, but allowing us to use their resources and their support to do what we feel is best in resonance to bring into the world right now. So you're very powerful. You are influencing your life and the world. The point is just focus on where your attention is. Look at what is your focus, really, and start shifting what doesn't balance, resonate, or fits into your preference. Whatever you've experienced at this point in time does not matter. That was just part of the stepping stones, part of the experiential gathering, and it's prepared you to be who you are now in a much more powerful way. So once again, thank you for playing and for attending this episode. Please share with as many people as possible. It's on several platforms. Yes, it's on YouTube as the video under Advancing Consciousness Podcast. It's on Vimeo also under Advancing Consciousness Podcast. It's available on Facebook in a Facebook group, Advancing Consciousness Podcast. It's also on some of my other Facebook platforms, and I do share it in other groups. But it's also available on Podbean, that is, and Spotify and iTunes and so forth in audio versions. So use this as reminders, triggers to kind of create the shifts within yourself that you wanted to. So this is just kind of a tool that's assisting what you're already doing. And all the information shared is coming from a higher state of your own awareness. So take what resonates, what doesn't resonate, that's okay, because at some point your resonance will continue to advance. And this is the part we want to understand, is that what resonated at one time may not, because that experience is no longer. We don't have to put the focus on there, but now you resonate something new. And this is kind of what's being shared throughout the world right now. If you choose to support this channel, and all of our other content that we are providing under Advances Consciousness series also. And to be more active, there is a contribution button through PayPal in the description, but we also have links to bring you to the newsletter. So if you're signing up, then you will get reminders of different events. If you're on different pages, either like, share, comment, subscribe, set the announcements depending on where you're seeing it, so that you don't miss any episodes. These episodes go out daily, and we did have a little slight disruption there for a little while, but we're back on track again. So anyways, enjoy, go out and play, and be the magnificence that